I'm Deval and this is No Cost Extension. In today's episode, I'm in conversation with Dhruv, Lakra, one of Dasra's first employees in 2004. After leaving Dasra, Dhruv went on to be a Skoll scholar at the University of Oxford and then started Mirakle Couriers, a national award-winning courier service that employs low-income deaf adults. Dhruv and I talked about the challenges of social entrepreneurship, building a business for persons with disabilities, and the Echoing Green Fellowship that got Dhruv started. Thanks, Dhruv.
Thank you for having me, Deval.
Really excited that you're here today. I think out of most of the guests that we interviewed in the first season were people that we'd known for, as you know, a long time. And I think you definitely fall into that bucket, into that category. And it would be good, though, to just introduce yourself a little. Where are you from? What brought you to Mumbai? How did you find out about Dasra?
So I grew up in Jammu and pretty much spent my childhood there. I came to Bombay for higher education. And my uncle was in Bombay. He was very keen that why don't I come to Bombay. I went to HR college and did commerce and economics and good college life. I just fell in love with the city. I decided that this is the place I want to be. And it's not that there's lack of opportunities, but I just felt that this is a place that really resonated with me that time. Completed my college, got a stint at DSP Merrill Lynch, did investment banking as an analyst for 2 years. Very interesting phase of my life. I walked into the office and I realized that this is exactly what I don't want to do. So I think that was a very good thing for me. That I'm lucky that happened to me very early on, because I could check one thing that I didn't want to do in my life. And then Dasra happened. I got to know about Dasra from a colleague of mine, and he told me that Dasra is an organization you should look up, and something is more socially driven, because I always wanted to look at the social sector, and I knew the social sector is not a typical social sector as it made out to be. And I applied to Dasra, and luckily for me, I was hired by Deval and Neera, so things started with that. My social impact journey, as you would say, would start from there.
And what year was this?
Back in the day, 2003 or 2004, I think. 20 years.
2004. And the reason I asked that is because, well, I guess what are your thoughts in terms of just how the environment has changed? I mean, in 2004, what were the sort of views of your parents, your peers, your colleagues, and where do you see, as it relates to you joining the sector, number one, and as it relates to you joining Dasra? And then I guess fast forward to comparing it to where we are today, you feel as a sector, even as Dasra for that matter.
I think it's a career which is not very popular back in the day. It's definitely picked up a lot of steam, but then the economy is changing, people are changing. But back in the day, if you were a young graduate and you are doing investment banking, unlikely someone would shift. You know, your passion kind of takes over for making the plunge. And you obviously have family stresses around you. If you're dating somebody, you know, you want to get married and all these things kind of kick in. So I think very few people would take the plunge. So if you're really passionate about it in 2000s, only then people would really shift. Otherwise people, and especially in India, is like you complete your graduation, get a job, get on with life, buy a house and buy a car and get married, and you take that path. And I was not one of those. So I have this story that my grandmother actually got very, very worried when she heard that I've left banking and joining this non-profit, and my first assignment is going to be with Dasra to Tamil Nadu in Nagapattinam and Kadalur doing tsunami relief. She actually called my dad and said that I think he's popping pills. So you know, these kind of things, and I don't blame her. I mean, being my grandmom, I don't blame her, but I could understand her anxiety and my girlfriend's parents being anxious about it. Now my wife, you know, that what are you doing with your life? Is this what you want to do? I always feel that there's never a right answer, but you have an inkling that this is what I would like to explore and do. And I think that's what people don't give them enough space. And there are a lot of reasons for that. You know, a lot of people have financial baggage and financial issues around it. Now, it's the second question. It's definitely become much better because salaries have gone up. it's a career path. You can, social impact is such a broad term that where there's social investments, non-profit, foundation, philanthropy, traditional philanthropy, giving, it's become very serious how the West looks at it. So you can definitely make a career out of it. It's just that it's still very nascent, I feel, in the whole bigger scheme of things. It'll be great if you see a gold medalist from an IIT or IIM, a top school in India, really looking for a job in a non-profit. I think it's going to take a while. But things have definitely improved by miles.
I still remember we were sitting in a taxi in New York when Neera told her mom that she's gonna join Dasra full time, and her mom, first things out of her mouth was "Beta, but what would I tell my friends now?"
Yeah, exactly. Similar things. So when I remember that you guys had given me a Toshiba laptop, which was 10 kilos,
Yes.
but it was a laptop. So I remember this very clearly. I've got very vivid memories. I'm sitting on the flight and we are going to Chennai, obviously for tsunami relief. And a gentleman next to me asks me that, are you in Infosys or Wipro? Standard job for an Indian male, young Indian male. And I said, no, this is a non-profit. He said, since when have non-profits started giving laptops? So it's like, just because I work for a non-profit, I can't be paid well. I can't take a flight. I can't have a laptop. I can't afford a mobile phone. So I think there's a baggage around this sector, unfortunately, which has become the jhola wala sector, that you're doing a dharna outside the parliament in Delhi and you shout slogans, you anti-establishment, you anti-government. There is a piece for that, but there's a much bigger piece which is actually doing programmatic great work in the fields.
And when you were working, since you're not from Mumbai originally, when you were working at DSP Merrill, where did you live when you joined Dasra?
So I stayed in a hostel for 2 years, YMCA. I think it's a great place. If listeners and any young listener wants to come to Bombay and wants to live in a hostel, I think there is no better place than YMCA in Colaba. It was close by to work. Great place. You meet youngsters from all over the country, all walks of life. Somebody's working in a non-profit, somebody's working pharmaceutical, somebody's an engineer. So it's a very good equalizer in terms of the whole social fabric of our country. And then when I shifted to Dasra, obviously our office was in Bandra, so started living that side. Took a small 1 BHK, shared with a school friend of mine. So things were tough, but like I said, the passion was so overpowering, for the lack of a better word, that we managed to get things. And by the end of the month, my friend and I both, we were broke, but we managed to make it work. So, but I think there was joy at work which kind of compensated for that. Even if you paid me much more in Merrill, which was obviously more, but there was no kick to get up in the morning and go to work. I think when that joy kicks in, things fall in place, and they have fallen in place. I'm not one of those idealistic guys who will say money is not important. I have made that mistake in my life of going on that path of true idealism in my entrepreneurial journey, that money is not important, I'll manage it. That's not true. Money is extremely important. But I would urge or request in a way that keep money when you're young, a little bit not at the forefront. Choose something that you're passionate about. Choose something that you think that you will do well. And places where you live, you can get by. Live in a smaller house, live in a paying guest. Get in touch with your old friends, share the rent, share the bills. But at that age, it's more important to really like what you do.
And between YMCA and between getting your place, you actually lived with us.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. That was a very interesting phase in my life where I was like, I don't know, like get up in the morning, whether I should have called them my bosses or whether they are my friends or whether they are my roommates. I was a bit identity crisis happening.
Yeah, but expand on that, because again, let's be clear, we had a 3-bedroom flat in Kandivali that my parents had purchased for themselves, that we were lucky to be given housing in. I think Neera and I had 1 bedroom, you had another bedroom, and the 3rd bedroom was the office.
The office, yeah.
And you lived there, meaning we all lived there. It wasn't... And so I think if you can speak about some of those times, because I feel nowadays, and you and I have spoken about this in the past as well, when somebody's looking to start something up, this mentality of bootstrapping doesn't exist as much as it did, maybe, or maybe only with a certain group of entrepreneurs. And I think this was a great example of bootstrapping and being a family and realizing that this is like, if we're bootstrapping, you're bootstrapping, we all need to be in this kind of together. So if you can bring some of those examples up, I think of both with Dasra and then, of course, when you started your own venture, Miracle Couriers, like how did you sort of deal with that? And I guess, and then my follow-up question to that is, do you feel entrepreneurs have that same level of risk and drive and commitment to make some of those decisions?
Money was not that easy to get by in terms of raising capital. The whole VC, pre-seed, seed A, series A, B, C, whatever you want to call it, was just about to start. There was a lot of news and talk about it. So you just could not raise capital that easily. So to a certain extent, you were pushed to do bootstrap, number one. But bootstrapping is extremely important because it breeds a certain culture and innovation in the firm that you have to be careful about what you spend on. So I think it's extremely important to understand that bootstrapping is good initially, but a part of me also does feel that you get stuck in bootstrapping. You don't scale, you don't raise capital, being so tight on money, even small little things can really bother you. But I think it depends on an organizational perspective that if you really want to take the next plunge in the evolution, raise money. If your business requires money, don't be stingy about it, because then the impact, the work, the profitability, the cash flows are not going to come in. So bootstrap, to answer in a nutshell, bootstrap initially, but there'll be a point where you will have to stop bootstrapping and think of bigger things in life. But not bootstrapping is wrong, is what I fundamentally believe.
And what was your journey after Dasra? Where did you go?
So luckily for me, got a full scholarship. I went into Oxford. It has a great MBA program and a strong focus on social impact and social investment, something which really, really resonated with me. And it was a 1-year program. And I remember you and Neera both guiding me that look at schools which are top tier schools and perhaps shorter duration. I was perhaps not too keen on applying to schools which are 2-year programs. I was already 26 and a half. So I was one of the younger ones in my batch. Luckily, got a full scholarship. I got the Skoll scholarship. Skoll Foundation does remarkable work across the world, and they choose 5 students to get a full scholarship with tuition. Fortunately for me, I was one of them. And for the clear mandate of graduating and coming back to India. I was not someone who wanted to live abroad or do something in the UK or in the US for that matter. Graduated, started developing this idea while I was in business school about a logistics company that would hire people with disabilities. Somehow I felt that people with disabilities haven't really got the due share. It's a very, very long journey, and those are very complex answers. Our societal fabric is structured in such a way that the discrimination is very rampant. So I just thought that what can I do to challenge the status quo? And I think this is another learning that I learned from Dasra, that perhaps Dasra also made me answer a particular question that perhaps a non-profit may not be my calling. So investment banking is not my calling, non-profit is not my calling, which was fantastic that I perhaps didn't want to go the traditional philanthropy route. More social investment, more social finance, or more social businesses models kind of resonated with me because, in my heart, Deval, and part of my entrepreneurial journey, I've answered that question again, that I'm a hustler at heart. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, but because a lot of family baggage around entrepreneurship, my family taking a lot of financial hit because of Kashmir, it was kind of distilled in me that you have to take up a job. So we have 5 grandkids. I'm the only entrepreneur. All 4 of them have jobs. So I find that amazing. My younger brother has a job. My cousins have jobs. Nobody is an entrepreneur. And we come from a family which always had businesses. When I was doing Merrill and when I did Dasra was entrepreneurial because we're 4 people, man. You have to be entrepreneurial, right? So I think I decided that I'm going to come back and start my entrepreneurship journey, and started Miracle with one delivery boy, or one deaf delivery boy, and with no experience how deaf people work, no idea how people with disabilities would do, and no idea about the space. So I just took the plunge. So I look back and take that in pride. There was a phase in my life where I stopped taking pride in my work, but I've gone back on that route and started asking myself these questions, that whatever said and done, I've built that and I've developed a model that works, and we have considerably increased the income levels. So that hustler in me is very much alive.
And why disability?
Yeah, at a personal level, I think my mom and dad had a car accident while I was in Oxford. And my dad had a spinal cord injury and he lost his leg, so he can't walk. And you always hear about people with disabilities, but when you see it at that close quarters, it has a very different dimension to it. It's just something that you can't even understand at deeper level what it does to you. So I think perhaps at the back of my mind, it was a combination of that, a combination of an opportunity, a combination of doing something on my own, a combination of doing the hustle, combination of keeping the spark alive. A lot of factors at play.
And I think I remember when you were at Dasra, at least one of the organizations that you spent a lot of time in was Prayas, which also happened to focus on disability. So if you want to speak a little bit about that work that you did with the amazing Jitendra Aurora and
She was a force to reckon with. I do miss her. So Prayas worked with intellectual disability and children, to make a proposal for raising money and sitting with her over cups of tea and understanding that how do you translate her work into impact. And spending more and more time with her, I started realizing that the impact on a person with disability has a multiplier effect on the economy, huge effect on the economy, and per se on the nation. And that's what people are using, right? Where can my hard-earned rupees or dollars be more effectively used? What impact? So that also germinated ideas in my mind. So Amartya Sen talks about this thing called the conversion handicap. So he says people like you and I, we walk and we are not paying to walk, right? But a person on a wheelchair uses a wheelchair which significantly takes a hit on his income. So that's called a conversion handicap. So I started realizing when I saw kids with intellectual disability that 30-40% of their parents' income are sending the kids to school, which someone like you and I may do it at a lesser cost. But if that child grows up to be an adult who's productive and is part of the society, the impact is far more, but it's not quantifiable. So Prayas was that idea that something needs to be done about a certain section, you can say that. I didn't know that I would work with deaf people. Intellectual disability is, in my opinion, the impact is much more to work with, but I'm not an educator by training, so I could not start a non-profit and start a school. I wanted to do a business. And for that, deaf, I felt would be the right match, not an intellectual disability, though we still will experiment with other disabilities.
And so you finish your MBA at Oxford,
Right.
full scholarship, so no loans, thank God.
Yeah, exactly.
You're here. What was sort of that next step of your journey? Because it's, like you said, it's not easy to start an organization, especially one, and to your own sort of, knowledge, you didn't know deaf youth, you didn't know career services, you did not have a degree or a family business in logistics. So how did you go about, I guess, starting the organization, and what were some of the earlier sort of supporters that you had? Because like you said, that is really important. Otherwise, you can't sort of survive or thrive.
So, I have a long list of supporters, and I think luckily for me, it worked out for me, but it was also two-way street, sitting and sending emails to people that this is what I want to do. I need some help. That can be financial or non-financial, even like somebody giving me office space to use. You introduced me to Anu Aga. I remember that clearly. And Anu Aga replied that we have 50 square feet, 50. It was smaller than the YMCA room also. Why don't you see let's see how you take it forward. Parallelly, I was finding a little office space, parallelly writing to the deaf youth and deaf clubs. Bombay has a culture of deaf clubs. Going and talking to the deaf leaders and asking that this is what I want to do. And I realized, the first thing I realized when I walked into a room with deaf people, I don't know how to sign. Oh, and I was like, how am I going to work with it if they don't understand me and I don't understand them? So I started learning a little bit signing on the side, business sign I would call it, or working sign I would call it. So start talking to them, hired 2 delivery boys, potential delivery boys. Apparently, Anu Aga gave us space, called the delivery boys to the office. Thermax people in Kolaba were zapped. What are these 2 boys doing? What are they going to do? Gave an order for 10 t-shirts because I could not afford 12 t-shirts. So we made first 10 t-shirts. It was like everything. That's what true entrepreneurship is. and then wrote to Mr. Mahindra, Mr. Anand Mahindra, and Mr. Mahindra has made a proposal that we will do your deliveries in a certain area because we don't have a network, we don't have a massive team. And within 10 minutes, I get a reply from Mr. Mahindra marking to the HR head of Mahindra and Mahindra that let's give Miracle a chance. By the way, that time the company was also not registered. So I had named it, but I was hoping that it'll get registered. So all that is happening on the side. And I remember that you and Neera generously offered me office space. So I used to walk in, send my emails because I couldn't afford internet, go out, lots of going on. And we started with Mahindra. I think Mahindra was our first client, and we started doing basic letters or magazines for them, which were not very important. And I remember the first delivery boy we had, his name is Ganesh. He's still with us. I used to follow Ganesh with a notepad on the street, observing that how will he do deliveries. And we were delivering in Bandra, Perry Cross Road. And Ganesh obviously doesn't know the area, and Ganesh is asking people on the street. So I had told Ganesh to start asking panwalas or watchmen because they know the local area and the local buildings. So he's asking the panwala and pointing towards the address, and the panwala is shouting and saying, "Signal se right leke second building." Signal right second building. And Ganesh is deaf. He can't hear. He can't speak. He's standing there. The panwala starts raising his voice. "सीधा जाओ, signal se right लो, दूसरा building." And I really wanted to intervene, but I said, I can't intervene every day. So I kept quiet. So I'm observing. He starts raising his voice even more, to the point that he's almost about to hit him. So I quickly run and tell the panwala that, sir, ये लड़का सुन नहीं सकता है और बोल नहीं सकता है, for English speakers listeners, that he can't hear and can't speak. The panwala tells me, उसको बोलो मुझे बोले he can't hear and can't speak. Tell him to tell me that. I said, he cannot tell you that. Then I realized this idea is not going to work. It's not going to happen. Challenges like that. Then he started coming to work regularly, started paying him on time. Then he started getting more boys. He got 10 more boys, 15 boys. We needed more space. And I spoke to my principal, Miss Indu Shani, and she said, why don't you write to Mr. Birla, Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla? I wrote to Mr. Birla. He loved the idea. And he said, why don't you come and meet us, meet our team, see what we can do. They gave us 200 square feet. So from 50, we graduated to 200 square feet. And now it's still our office. And he's been very, very generous to us and really, really supported us. And I sit in that office. It's in Industry House. And we're going to be here for a while. And it's a mutual understanding with the Birlas because they really loved what we do. Then Mr. Birla said, why don't you look at hiring women? They can be your back office because women with disabilities are really at the bottom of the list. So we started hiring women, and then there was another angle to it that Indian men being Indian men never listen to the Indian women. So there was another social angle to it. So I'm parallelly understanding how the community works. I'm getting insight into the deaf world. It's a very different world, Deval. It's not a world that we understand. Partly because people with disabilities are so segregated in our society that it's a surprise. I was like, wow, this also happens. That also happens. Because I was embarrassed that as someone who calls himself a active citizen of this country and a so-called entrepreneur trying to do things, I did not know even basics of this community. And I started realizing, started reading, started researching that the stigma and the social conditioning happens at a very deep level at a very younger age. Then I started asking my friends that, did we have blind kids in our school? No. Did we have deaf kids in our school? No. Did we have kids in a wheelchair in our school? No, because they go to separate schools. When they go to a separate school, they go to separate colleges. Most of them don't study. So they live in a parallel world. So I started asking myself that, am I trying to bridge that world? So a lot of questions happened when I grew this venture. And it really, really took a toll on me emotionally, really badly. And I went through this phase where I was like, this is not something I want to do anymore. Or it's not resonating with me. I had no money. I was not paying myself. So it's been a ride. So without the supporters, it can't happen. And the third, with Dasra, Mr. Birla, Mr. Anand Mahindra, and the fourth supporter, which I have to name, is Amit Chandra. I wrote to Amit that this is what I'm doing, and Amit said, why don't you come home, and there is something I left for you. And I went home and there was a check for me. And he said, let's see what you do with this, and something will happen. And I looked at the check and I was like, man, I have made payroll. I have made salaries for this month. So I was never in the fray. And if I could turn back time, that's a mistake I did. I really stopped caring about myself. And it took a toll on me emotionally and physically, relationship wise. Lots happened. And I realized that I shouldn't have done that. That's the problem with bootstrapping. You cannot bootstrap all the time. I should have raised money that time, but I didn't. I should get up in the morning, have a glass of water, quick cup of coffee, one vada pav, and I'm out. Come back, sleep, one vada pav a day. That's what I did for longest periods of time. Started falling sick. My friends, my family started telling me this is a no-go, not paying myself, sleeping 3 hours a day, writing emails to Mr. Mahindra at 4 in the morning. I mean, now I look back, I'm like, I did it. I shouldn't have done it. That's being stupid. So that's the flip side of bootstrapping. It went into my DNA that I have no money. And you need money to experiment. You need money for innovation. You need money to challenge status quo. There were times that I didn't have money for a taxi to meet a client. And then one day I started asking myself, I'm being stupid. This client is going to give me business and I don't have money to reach him. So you go through this journey. So without the supporters, it wouldn't have happened. So these guys are a godsend for us.
You also got Echoing Green.
The Echoing Green happened, the money came late. Because Echoing Green, it's a US nonprofit. By the time why are you the money? You apply for the process, you go for an interview. It's a full 1 year process. So when Echoing Green came, things got much better. But before that, there was all this happening. That by the 25th of the month, I used to start sweating that how will I pay them? And I started realizing that even if there's a delay in salary by a day, nobody's going to show to work. And they should not. That's my responsibility. But I took it to another level that it bogged me down. It really affected me emotionally. Till today, if my admin team delays payroll, we have never delayed payroll. Come what may. Payday is payday. You beg, you borrow, you steal. That's why people have stuck to us. But at that time, it was stressful. So when Echoing Green came, people started getting paid on time. Started doing a little bit of investment. We bought a printer. We bought a laptop. Basics. We started making pamphlets. We didn't have money for a pamphlet. We didn't have money for a website. My junior from college did a website. I felt so bad. He asked for 25,000 rupees. I said, I don't have 25,000 for a website. He said, fine, I'll do it. We'll see what go. Give it to me later. But then Echoing Green happened. I gave him 25,000. So there was always plus, minus, always plus, minus. But Echoing Green was just fantastic. Another great community. When the money started coming regularly, things got much better.
Because I doubt many of our listeners know Echoing Green, and at Dasra, even though we work with more sort of middle stage organizations, so to speak, who now have become very large, given our roots were with startups. Yeah. We still have a lot of NGO leaders or startups coming to us. And I don't think there's ever been a meeting where I don't recommend Echoing Green. Correct. So if you can maybe speak a little bit about Echoing Green, what the process was like, why that was critical.
So Echoing Green is a non-profit based in New York. They choose about 20 fellows a year. Program has changed. I think now they have sections of fellows. They have climate fellows. They have global fellows. You can go on the website and go through the detailed application process. During my time, you had to apply, which was a very, very rigorous application. And I would urge the listeners and people Dasra also works with that even if you don't get Echoing Green, the application itself will make you think. I have never put in more effort in an application. It was tougher than my business school applications because every question was a why. It's like an onion and the layers are being peeled. Why? Why this? Why that? Why this? Why that? And on an average, I think if I'm not wrong, Echoing Green application is read by 22 people across industries, across verticals. So my application was read by a deaf fellow. She told me when I met her that she read my application. So applications are read by 22 people. You first apply, you get through round one. I think there's round two, and then they call you to New York for final interviews where actual experts in the field will interview you and they will grill you. For my example, my social business, I had a private equity fellow because he understood business and he understood logistics, and a deaf disability rights activist who was a fellow were there, and they quizzed me and graded me for 45 minutes. So it's a great process for everyone just to go through, because it really helps you with your idea and distillation. Because there are a lot of people doing many things. And why do you want to reinvent the wheel, as we would say it? So the first question I was asked, I remember it was crystal clear. I was, so many organizations with deaf people. Why do we need another Miracle Couriers? So you have to be very clear, because potentially you will pitch to a VC, right? So I think the Echoing Green process everyone should go through. Applications open in October, November. They announce the fellows in May.
So Magic Bus, Matthew Spacey, as well as Neera and I, made it to the final round of Echoing Green, I think in 2002, and both of us got rejected.
Yeah, Echoing Green can be picky.
So no, but it's, I mean, given that can happen to us, and to your point, that means you just hustle more, which was good for us. I think we're so proud of you when you got the Echoing Green, because we're like, it's fine if we didn't get it, that's fine, but it's good that somebody who worked with us in the early days, and I remember Matt also was so excited to hear when you got it, because it's like, at least somebody from our network gets it.
But if anybody or the listeners need help on Echoing Green, I'm there. I do read applications almost every 2-3 years. I've not read in 3 years, but I do read applications, and I have helped a lot of Indian applicants applying, and they have got it.
And there's, again, it's an amazing cadre of organization leaders. Maybe if you want to just mention a few from the Indian context who've been Echoing Green awardees, just to help people understand the diversity of who they support.
Madhukar, he's by far one of the most amazing people. I've not really sat with him and I really had spoken about it, but his work is so remarkable.
PRS, right? Parliamentary Research Services.
Then there is Aditya, I think he was with Gandhi Fellow or
Piramal Foundation.
Piramal Foundation,
but
Eklavya. And he was one batch senior to me in 2008. He got it in 8, I got it in 2009. So they have a fellowship here. And we used to meet every year. So Aditya and I also have in a way, we're not in touch, but we have a special bond. There's this sense of community that entrepreneurs need when they're starting, that you can really piggyback on, is the word, supporters, as you said, because you can just pick up the phone and say, man, I need some help. I'm struggling with this A thing, so I need. Ajeta Shah is a Echoing Green Fellow at Frontier Markets. She's doing great work in Rajasthan. So stuff like that.
I mean, along those lines, I think if you can speak a little bit about if you've seen any changes as it relates to funding startups in India. Because like you said, Echoing Green, at least at the time, was one of the few groups, and that too, they're based in the US. I mean, we're lucky as a country, once a year, maybe one fellow a year, maybe from India, if even that much. And clearly there's so many more ideas that exist in our country. Have you seen sort of the startup funding landscape change at all in the Indian context, or are there other groups that you think somebody who's starting up an organization should go to or speak to?
I think definitely more money has come in the system. And partly because I think entrepreneurs who have done well in the classic sense of exits are becoming investors. So if the Flipkart guys have got a massive exit, I'm not sure if they look at social investment as an investment strategy now, but things will change. Because right now India is in that phase that if I've exited at 10x, I want my money to become 100x. So I will invest in a traditional startup, a regular business, which is also great. Why not? But I think entrepreneurs who are slightly more evolved in the journey are looking at social investment also for investing. That out of my 100 crore of exit I've got from a great startup that has sold to a big giant, let me put 5 crores in a social investment that cannot give me a 50x, will give me a return with impact. And 95, let me put in classic old school companies that are just going to give me pure financial return. That's it. It's far easier to raise money now. Far easier to raise money. You have the Avishkars of the world, and During our time, they were also just starting up and figuring out their acts. Right now, there's a very detailed, very clear, crystal clear process in terms of how do you raise money and what's the plan. And the ecosystem is developing, so people are going to get exits. And when exits happen, it's always good for the sector, always good for the system. Because the first question when I try to was raising money is that, how do I get an exit? That's the first question. How do you get an exit? Especially in a social impact business. The exit options are very limited. So Michael Dell Susan Foundation, they were not, I think they were non-existent when we were there, 2009, or probably starting up. Now I think things are definitely, it's far easier to start today than it was back in the day. Far easier. That does not mean there are no challenges, but challenges are different.
Yeah. And you spoke about how the sort of decision you made to be a for-profit in the country, what have been sort of, how do you make that decision, I guess? And if you can help listeners again who are in the same situation right now of trying to figure out, should they be an NGO? Should they be a for-profit company, a social business? Like what are some of the areas, I guess, that you thought about and both successes because of your decision as well as some hardships because of that? Because
Yeah, that's a great question because, I went through the journey that I was thinking that why a for-profit? And for me, I think the answer was very crystal clear that disability and charity go hand in hand. Unfortunately, whenever you see a PWD or a person with a disability, there is something because of a conditioning that kicks in, that you feel the person is inferior or God has been kind to you. That social baggage is very deep in India. So I decided that if I do a non-profit, I'm in a way adding fuel to fire.
perpetuating that.
Perpetuating. And if I'm a logistics company that is targeting service, working with PWD, I cannot be structured as a non-profit because of just the perception. I'm so passionate about the sector and I can fight for the sector, but I do feel that non-profits get the bad end of the stick. So other day I was having an argument with a friend of mine that I don't know where my money is going. I said, do not talk about corporate scam in India. The non-profit sector is far cleaner than the corporate sector. But the perception and optics, the sector has bad optics. For disability, the optic in India is charity. God save me. I've done past life sin, so God has punished me. For that, non-profit would have been a no-go, which is why it was a for-profit.
Also, your customers
Correct.
are paying customers. Like you said, there's Thermax, Mahindra, whatever, so you don't need to subsidize them.
Correct. And exactly. And they're big companies with processes in place, audits in place. I don't think so that I would make the paperwork clarity that because you've got to give a lot of paperwork to be a vendor with these companies. I don't think so they have systems in place that a vendor can be a non-profit. A non-profit is always a CSR. So I realized that a non-profit will be challenging. So let's do a for-profit. The pitfall, Deval, is that you got to balance both. And I'll be honest that I am leaning towards business. It pushes you in such a manner, Deval, that the social mission will get diluted. And I'll be honest with it. And I have made peace with that with great difficulty.
Can you explain what the ramifications of those decisions were, just for the listeners?
Yeah, for example, Miracle had 98% people with disabilities, 98%. And then a client of mine told me that, Dhruv, it's great that you're doing it, but it's too idealistic to grow a business. And the client said the same thing that you said. Then become a non-profit. If you want to do a business, you cannot sustain that. And I started realizing what he meant. And he said that, he said, if the goal of Miracle is to hire persons with disabilities, hire them in a bigger way. If you have 1,000 people, 400 are disabled, that doesn't mean that you have not done impact. I was too latched on to the idea of idealism and social impact and person with disabilities. This is where my failing was. And it's a journey, right? There are no right answers. So we decided that why can't we hire some low-income candidate? Our mandate was very clear. A low-income candidate comes, his bio data goes in the file. A deaf candidate comes, come what way, we'll make you do something. But it was backfiring because the clients were getting unhappy. Service levels were falling. Things couldn't happen. So we decided that we'll have both. And also it's very good for deaf people to work with hearing people. So we have a sense of community happening. The deaf people were again comfortable. They only work with deaf people. Miracle was giving them another platform to again work with only deaf people. As I brought in hearing people, there were clashes. How do you build culture around it? If I'm a deaf person, I will not listen to a hearing person because you don't know how to sign. So that culture has to be built from scratch. But that's where the change happened, that we are inclusive. So we have stopped positioning and branding ourselves as a logistics company that hires people with disabilities. Our play is very clear that we are super efficient, super fast, reliable. That's it. How we do it is my lookout. And that has come with a lot of conversations, a lot of people out of time, and a lot of abuse. A lot of abuse from clients. Like literal abuse because there was a delay of 10 minutes. And that shows you fabric, right? That it's a lens on society, how we treat labor, how we treat people. Like people will not wait 2 minutes for a delivery. They expect our delivery boys to come up 6 floors with their bags and to not even have the decency to offer them a glass of water in the Bombay heat in May. It's a lens, right? So we realize that we cannot be so idealistic and let's change the social impact. And we are still going to be impact, but we'll have other people also. So my goal eventually is going to be 50-50. That's the way to go.
And how large is your team now? And
We have about 250 people.
And where are they based?
All over Bombay. All over Bombay. And we have multiple locations. And people with disabilities, the percentage has come down and it's going to come down.
And how many would be?
Right now, we are at 50-50. Yeah, but I do feel that it may just come down.
And so how's the gig economy supported or not supported your business model?
Gig is very complex. And again, it's been a very big thing for me to understand gig in a way that, to be honest with you, Deval, we don't have a choice. We have to go the gig route. And I have taken that decision with great difficulty. Gig has a lot of advantages, but gig fundamentally is also very discriminatory also. So I don't have an answer for that. But as running a business, someone who is a consumer of gig economy also, gig is the future. So the government and the new labor codes are coming in apparently next year. The government has, I think, accepted the fact that gig is here to stay, but you got to give a safety net and layers around it. So it happened in Miracle also. We told the delivery team that, do you want to go the gig route? The money difference level is so huge in gig versus payroll. You do not get delivery people on salaries anymore. And that's a function of multiple factors. Partly obscene amount of capital the food tech companies have raised. So hire at will, whatever you want, just execute the order. And that's the way societies are getting structured. Delivery boys want to work when they want to work. They open the phone, put on the app, work for 4 hours, get paid. Want to sleep for 2 hours, sleep for 2 hours. Today, delivery boys, they're their own bosses. So we did actually a survey and asked our delivery people, and everybody wanted to go gig route because the salary difference is massive. It's almost double. And at the low income levels, that's a lot of money. So gig is here to stay.
And how many of your team members are now?
More than 50% are gig. More than 50% are gig. Because gig, the way it is structured, is incentivized in such a manner that you can make really good amount of money per month, especially during peak season or peak hours. Huge. So at some levels, one also needs to understand from a social justice point of view that it is discriminatory, no doubt about it. But at the same time, I'll be honest with you, we told one of our delivery boys that you come inside our office and become back office. That's a skill, learning how to manage a warehouse. He said no, because the money difference was huge. But I said, you have a career path. He said, I don't care about that. I want money now because cost of living has shot up. He's got a family, he's got kids, he wants to put them to an English speaking school. He's got house to run, he's got bills. So that's, from a social justice point of view, is a bit unfortunate that somebody gets the luxury to choose. Like we had the luxury to choose. 50% of them don't have that luxury. They just have to get on.
And is the business still packages?
Yeah, e-commerce. And delivery boys love it in terms of money. And that's great. And why not? Why not? If everybody is enjoying the so-called growth in India, every layer of society should enjoy their growth.
What advice do you have for new leaders, whether they're NGOs, social businesses, anyone who's looking to step into the impact space?
Give it a shot. I think get your hands dirty. I think that's where something is missing. I don't know, probably I'm wrong, but I work with some entrepreneurs. I think they don't really get their hands dirty, I feel. Now, if you want to do impact, work with organizations, go to the field, spend 12 hours under the sun. You need to understand at the end of the day, the end person is getting a benefit out of it or not, is changing lives or not. It's very easy to sit in an AC room and make a presentation on an Apple computer and have a blue Tokai coffee, man. I mean, there's the space for that also, but get your hands dirty. And unfortunately, I think kids don't want to do that, or I don't know, probably I'm too critical of this generation. I don't know. Not that I'm very old, but we had kids coming to Miracle for internship and we have a strict policy. You have to do deliveries for 1 week. And that requires a 30-kilo bag, walk, ring the bell, talk to the customer, give the package on time. And very few kids do it. And that's a turn off. Parents have told me, I said, so be it. We'll make you do printing, we'll make you do Xerox, we'll make you do deliveries. And after 1 week, fine, you want to do a strategic project on cost, do it on a Monday. But for 1 week, you need to understand what the delivery boy goes through on the street, day and night.
No, and when you joined Dasra, we had a policy back then, you remember, which was 3 months.
Correct.
In the field.
Absolutely.
And that was mimicking what Neera and I had both done. We said, if you're not in the field, you're not going to be able to do anything.
It is pointless. You're so cut away from reality, I feel. Fine, you build something, you fail. Great. That's another issue in our society. Failure is looked down upon. Build again, fail. Fine. Third time it will be a success. Fourth time it will be a success. Why not?
What gives you hope?
Right now the hope is that in Indian e-commerce sector really picks up and India really becomes a force to reckon with. But in my deep sense, I'm a die-hard Indian. I feel this is the country of the future and this is the country that is going to change the world. And I do really have hope after belittling the young crowd that there is hope in them. They're lateral thinkers. They do things differently, perhaps. I'm not used to it, but I think things will change. There's hope in the young people of this country.
Great. Well, thank you, Dhruv.
Thank you, Deval.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to know more about our work of any of the guests, or the Rebuild India Fund, please go to our website, dasra.org/NCE, where we've got show notes, links, and much, much more. No Cost Extension is produced by the amazing Baka Media.